It was a show that rewrote the rules of television. Moonlighting smashed through the fourth wall, bent genres until they broke, and proved that a detective series could be a screwball romance, a comedy, and a work of art all at once. It had the ratings, it had the acclaim, it was must-see TV. And then, it imploded. With the genius came chaos, feuds, on-set nightmares, and a curse that influenced television for decades. But that's only part of the story. This is the rise and fall of Moonlighting. Before we start, give this video a like if you watched Moonlighting and subscribe for more retro TV deep dives. Let's start with the man with the crazy concept that would change television drama as we know it. Glenn Gordon Caron had worked his way up through the television ranks, writing for shows like Remington Steele. When ABC told him to make a detective show, he didn't want to do it. Detective shows were everywhere, so instead he decided to, as he put it, kill the genre by lampooning it. He wrote the 2-hour pilot about a former model, Maddie Hayes, who loses everything when her accountant embezzles her fortune. All she has left is a failing detective agency she'd bought as a tax write-off. And running that agency is a wise-cracking, cocky private investigator named David Addison, who drives her absolutely insane. By the time he was done, Cybill Shepherd was his top choice to play Maddie. They met, she read the script, and she wanted in. That was the easy part. The toughest part was casting David Addison. The network saw 1,100 men. There were 2 guys who could actually do the lines properly, Alan Arkin and Dennis Dugan. But they weren't a good fit with Cybill. It was looking so bleak that the network was going to pay Glenn and Cybill off and cancel the show because they thought David's part was uncastable. The show was almost dead on arrival. But then, Bruce Willis walked in. Glenn knew immediately. He was the one. But the network wasn't convinced. Caron brought him in front of the network, get this, 11 times, and they said no every time. They kept saying, he's not a leading man, which was crazy to Caron because women would apparently fall over themselves when Bruce walked into a room because of his bad boy charisma. Caron finally convinced the network to do a screen test so they could see the chemistry with Cybill, but Cybill wouldn't go on film. Get this. She was afraid that once she was seen on film, Caron wouldn't want her. So they hired another actress just so the network could see Bruce act with another woman. But the network still wasn't convinced. They needed to see him with Cybill. Finally, after Caron begged her, she did it. But still, the network wasn't convinced. It took Ann Daniel, the head of development and one of the few female executives in Hollywood at the time, to clear her throat in the boardroom and say something to the effect of, "I don't know if he's a TV star, but he sure looks dangerous to me." And with that, Caron got the green light. Without Caron's persistence, Bruce Willis likely doesn't become a leading man in Hollywood. Moonlighting premiered on March 3rd, 1985 with a 2-hour pilot that was expensive, cinematic, and completely unlike anything else on television. The dialogue was rapid fire. Characters talked over each other, interrupted, bantered at a pace television had never seen before. Caron's scripts felt like jazz, improvised, alive, and dangerous. The show broke the fourth wall constantly, and the sexual tension was suffocating. Maddie and David bickered constantly. They insulted each other. They drove each other insane. But underneath every argument was the unmistakable truth. They wanted each other desperately, and audiences were eating it up. The reviews from critics, however, were mixed. The Kansas City Star wrote that Willis elevated the show from good to outstanding. The Philadelphia Daily News called it very funny and downright friendly. But the Washington Post's Tom Shales dismissed it as derivative. None of it mattered. The audience had spoken. In a condensed first season, Moonlighting was an emerging hit with critical acclaim. Willis and Shepherd both won People's Choice Awards. Willis became the spokesperson for Seagram's Golden Wine Coolers. His singing, goofy commercials made him even more famous. Cybill Shepherd was back on magazine covers. Her comeback was complete. And in Season 2, the show doubled down on its uniqueness. It started doing stunt episodes, experimental hours that broke every rule of television. In The Dream Sequence Always Rings Twice, the show did a black-and-white 1940s film noir homage, with David and Maddie playing out a murder mystery from 2 different perspectives. The show did musical numbers. David performed an entire Broadway-style chain gang song in the middle of an episode. There were fantasy sequences set to Billy Joel songs. Audiences and critics loved every minute. The show jumped to 20th in the Nielsen ratings. It received a stunning 16 Emmy nominations, but only won 1. The show still had something to prove, and in season 3, it reached its absolute peak. This season delivered the show's most ambitious experiment yet. In Atomic Shakespeare, David reads The Taming of the Shrew and imagines the story with himself as Petruchio and Maddie as Kate. The entire episode was shot like a period piece, in a theater with the dialogue in iambic pentameter. It was audacious. It was brilliant. It was unlike anything television had ever attempted. The show rocketed to number 9 in the Nielsen ratings, tied as ABC's second highest rated show. It had become a genuine cultural phenomenon. For 3 glorious seasons, it seemed unstoppable. But then, everything fell apart. The trouble started behind the scenes, long before audiences ever saw the cracks. Glenn Gordon Caron was a perfectionist, and perfectionism in television is expensive. Caron treated every episode like a feature film. He refused to use zoom lenses. Instead, he used master cameras on tracks that had to be constantly reset. He used diffusion discs to soften Cybill Shepherd's features in close-ups. He used special lenses so that in a 2-shot, Maddie would be diffused and David wouldn't. The attention to detail was obsessive, and it was killing the production schedule. A typical 1-hour drama takes 7 days to shoot. Moonlighting episodes took 12 to 14 days. Scripts weren't finished until the last possible second. They were nearly twice as long as standard 1-hour scripts. Caron would rewrite scenes up until the moment they were filmed. As a result, the show became notorious for missing air dates. ABC would schedule a new episode and it wouldn't be finished in time. Reruns filled the gaps and audiences started to get frustrated. And then there was the fighting. Willis and Shepherd had electric chemistry on screen. But off-screen, they couldn't stand each other. According to Curtis Armstrong, who later wrote about it in his memoir, Revenge of the Nerd, yes, Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepherd hated each other. The fighting escalated rapidly, ending with Cybill flinging a briefcase against the door with a force that shook the set. Alice Beasley, who played Agnes, later said, Cybill and Bruce were very unhappy and it was very hard to be around. The grueling schedule made everything worse, with 14 to 15-hour days with last-minute scripts and a perfectionist showrunner who demanded take after take. But through it all, the show kept delivering. The tension on set translated to tension on screen, and audiences couldn't look away. But then came a decision that changed everything. For 2.5 seasons, Moonlighting had built its entire foundation on one question: will they or won't they? Maddie and David circled each other. They flirted. They fought. They even shared a confused, desperate kiss in a parking garage in season 2. But they never crossed the final line. The sexual tension remained unbearable. But in season 3, episode 14, an episode titled I Am Curious, Maddie, Glenn Gordon Caron made a decision that would alter television for decades to come. He had Maddie and David sleep together. The episode aired on March 31st, 1987. The Ronettes' Be My Baby played as the two finally consummated their relationship. It was romantic, it was inevitable, and it was exactly what audiences had been begging for. 60 million people tuned in, but from there, it was all downhill. And with that, the Moonlighting curse was born. The curse revolves around a simple premise. Audiences tune in for the chase and the tension that comes with it. When you resolve that tension, viewers start tuning out. But what came next would make things even worse and ultimately doom the show. In 1987, Cybill Shepherd got pregnant with twins. Under normal circumstances, a pregnancy could be a gift for a TV show. Maddie could have the baby, and it could deepen the relationship between her and David. Shepherd later wrote in her memoir that she pushed for this. She felt there was a way to work the pregnancy into the plot to bring the characters closer. The producers disagreed. They saw the domestic reality of a baby as a threat to the show's sexy noir vibe. Their solution was a disaster. They wrote the pregnancy into the storyline, but used it to drive the characters apart. At the end of season 3, Maddie leaves for Chicago to stay with her parents and sort out her feelings. Season 4 opens with David flying out to win her back, failing, and Maddie remaining in Chicago for most of the season. The result was that for much of season 4, she was gone. Shepherd filmed her scenes early and separately, often weeks before Willis's material, and the footage was stitched together later. David and Maddie, the entire foundation of the show, were physically apart for almost the entire season. Viewers were furious. The chemistry, the banter, the electricity, it was all gone. But it wasn't just Shepherd's pregnancy that complicated things. In late 1987, while filming Season 4, Bruce Willis was pulling grueling double duty. By day, he was David Addison. By night, and on weekends, he was filming a little action movie for 20th Century Fox called Die Hard. The production schedule was already a nightmare. Now, with Willis exhausted and Shepherd in a different city, the producers scrambled. Episodes were rewritten on the fly to focus on the supporting cast, leading to a strange stretch of episodes centered on Agnes and Herbert's romance. Curtis Armstrong and Alice Beasley were charming, but they weren't David and Maddie. Ratings slipped to 12th, still strong, but slipping. And then, two things happened that hammered the final nails into the coffin. First, in March 1988, the Writers Guild went on strike. The walkout lasted until August, 5 long months that ground television production to a halt. Moonlighting didn't just stumble, it vanished. And second, while the show was off the air, Die Hard premiered. Opened on July 15, 1988, the film made $140 million worldwide. It turned Bruce Willis from a TV comic into the biggest action star on the planet overnight. When Moonlighting finally limped back for Season 5 in December 1988, after a massive 9-month gap, everything had changed. The season premiere, A Womb with a View, introduced Maddie's baby, voiced by Willis, in a dream sequence. But the writers were still determined not to have a baby ruin the detective agency dynamic. So, in the very next episode, they wrote in a miscarriage. The pregnancy storyline was gone, and the audience's patience was gone. Bruce Willis was now getting $5 million offers to star in films. He was on the cover of every magazine, and he was contractually obligated to finish a TV show he had completely outgrown. The show, once ranked 9th, in the ratings had dropped to 49th. 6 more episodes aired, and then, in May 1989, ABC pulled the plug. Moonlighting was canceled. The finale, titled Lunar Eclipse, sees David and Maddie return to the Blue Moon Detective Agency only to find the sets being struck. The furniture is being hauled away. The lights are being turned off. Confused, they confront a network executive who explains, deadpan, that the show has been canceled because romance killed the ratings. It was a final meta-commentary on their own demise. The show ends with a montage of happy memories followed by an end card that says Blue Moon Investigations has closed. But the one thing that didn't end that day was the feud between Bruce and Cybill. In the press, they didn't hide their disdain for one another. In a famous 1990 appearance on the Arsenio Hall show, Bruce Willis was diplomatic but cold, saying, "We didn't get along very well on that show. I will say that." Shepherd was less guarded. In interviews, she bluntly called Willis a jerk. In her 2000 memoir, Cybill Disobedience, she painted a picture of a set defined by hostility, describing herself as feeling shut out, overworked, and disrespected by her co-star's rising ego. For decades, the two barely spoke. The chemistry that had set the world on fire seemed to have burned everything down with it. But then, life offered a coda that the show never could. In 2022, the world learned that Bruce Willis had been diagnosed with aphasia and would be retiring from acting. The news was devastating, but it revealed something beautiful. The feud was long over. Shepherd revealed that she had reconnected with Bruce before his diagnosis became public knowledge. The years of resentment had faded, replaced by the genuine affection they once shared in those early magical days. But here's what we need to make sure doesn't get lost in a decades-long rift. Moonlighting left behind a roadmap and a giant warning sign. The Moonlighting curse became the industry's boogeyman for the next 30 years. Because of Moonlighting, television fundamentally changed its strategy. The new goal became unresolved sexual tension, or URST, and writers learned to stretch it out for eternity. When creating The X-Files, Chris Carter made it clear it's not going to be Moonlighting. He kept Mulder and Scully platonic for the better part of 7 seasons. Friends took the lesson to heart too. They put Ross and Rachel together early, but immediately broke them up with the infamous "we were on a break" storyline. Why? To restore the tension. They knew they needed the chase to keep the show alive. Bones creator Hart Hanson waited 6 seasons before letting Booth and Brennan get together, ensuring the audience was desperate for it rather than bored by it. But this wasn't the show's only legacy. Moonlighting also played a key role in popularizing the dramedy as a distinct television genre. Before 1985, TV shows tended to stay in their lanes, strict sitcoms or straight dramas. Shows like MASH had blended comedy and drama effectively. But Moonlighting took it further with its ferocious, seamless shifts. Noir thriller one moment, screwball comedy the next, and heartfelt tearjerker soon after. The show's constant breaking of the fourth wall paved the way for the meta-humor of Fleabag, She-Hulk, and Deadpool. The genre-hopping episodes, where characters would suddenly be in a Shakespeare play or a 1940s noir, created the template for shows like Community. Creator Dan Harmon cited Moonlighting's atomic willingness to destroy its own format as a major inspiration. Moonlighting proved that television could be art. It proved that a detective show could be a romance. And it proved that sometimes the brightest spark doesn't last forever, but it leaves a glow that never fades.